Welcome to Cloud-Based Bedtime Stories with Wanjala. You made it through the day. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let tonight's story find you. Nothing is paging. We can just read. Tonight, we journey into the quiet, constant movement of Dataflow. In the world of cloud infrastructure, data is rarely still. It is like water, constantly rising, shifting, and seeking a path to its destination. Let us follow this river as it winds through the valley, carrying messages from the high hills down to the quiet lake of archives. Chapter 1: The Valley of the Endless Stream. Imagine a wide, silent valley under a twilight sky. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and pine needles. Through the center of this valley runs a single river. This river is Dataflow. For a long time, people thought of information as something you keep in heavy stone vaults. You would gather your records, bind them in heavy books, and stack them in dark libraries. Once a day, or perhaps once a week, a scholar would open the vault, read the books all at once, and write a summary. This is what we call batch processing, a massive, scheduled task that happens when the day's work is done. But this river is different. It does not wait for the end of the day. It flows constantly, carrying individual droplets of water from the mountains. Each droplet is a tiny event, a moment in time. One drop might be the temperature of a sensor in a distant orchard. Another might be a log entry from a traveler passing through a distant gate. Because the river never sleeps, it processes these droplets as they arrive, one by one, in a continuous stream. In this valley, the same riverbed can handle both the quiet, steady trickle of the stream and the sudden, heavy torrent of the batch reservoir. The path they travel is the same, designed with the same care, flowing toward the same peaceful sea. Chapter 2: The Loom of the Stream. Makers. Before a river can find its way safely through the valley, there must be a plan. The river must know where to turn, where to slow down, and where to drop its silt. In our valley, this plan is woven on a legendary tool known as the Loom of Beam, which builders call Apache Beam. The loom does not belong to any single kingdom. It is open, free, and understood by weavers across many lands. When you write your design on the Loom of Beam, you are defining the journey of the water. You write down the rules of the path. First, the water must pass through a screen of fine gravel to filter out the sand. Then, the water must be separated. Perhaps the warm water goes left, and the cool water goes right. Finally, the water is gathered together again, enriched with minerals, and guided to its final destination. The beauty of the Loom of Beam is its portability. The instructions you weave on it do not bind you to a single valley. If you choose, you can take your blueprint to other fields, to be run by other river keepers known as Flink or Spark. But tonight, we entrust this blueprint to the runner of Dataflow. The runner takes your design, places it gently into a secure storage bucket, and begins to shape the land to match your vision. Chapter 3: The Sluice Keepers of the Shifting Sands. To manage a river, you would normally need an army of laborers. You would need to dig trenches, build stone walls, and watch the banks night and day to make sure the water does not overflow. But the river of Dataflow is a managed stream. The great steward of the valley takes care of all the labor. You do not need to build the banks or hire the watchmen. When your pipeline begins to run, the steward quietly summons a pool of virtual workers, like quiet sluice keepers who stand along the banks. These workers are virtual machines dedicated entirely to your stream. They do not require your attention. They simply appear, take up their stations, and begin to guide the water. Some nights, the mountains are quiet, and only a tiny stream of droplets trickles down the bed. Seeing this, the steward gently tells the extra keepers they may go home and sleep. The riverbanks grow quiet, and only a few workers remain to watch the lazy current. But other nights, a sudden storm breaks in the hills. A massive volume of data, perhaps millions of logs from a fleet of devices, comes rushing down the channel at once. The steward does not panic. He wakes the sleeping keepers and places them along the banks side by side to handle the heavy load. This is auto-scaling. And if one channel becomes congested with leaves and debris, while another channel runs empty, the steward dynamically rebalances the work. He shifts the water and the tasks between the keepers, ensuring that no single worker is overwhelmed while others stand idle. The work is shared, the parallel paths move in harmony, and the river keeps its steady pace. Chapter 4: The Two Laws of the Droplets. As the water flows, every single droplet must be accounted for. In the quietest parts of the valley, the keepers live by a strict rule, the law of exactly once. Imagine a ledger where every droplet is written down as it passes a bridge. If a wave splashes and a droplet is counted twice, the ledger becomes confused. Under the exactly once rule, the keepers work with absolute precision. They ensure that even if the river surges, or if a keeper briefly trips and drops his lantern, every single record is processed exactly once. No droplet is lost, and no droplet is duplicated. It is a peaceful, orderly system that brings great comfort to the scholars who rely on perfect numbers. Yet, there are times when the river carries simple things, like the sound of the wind or the rustle of leaves. For these things, absolute precision is less important than speed and simplicity. In those moments, the steward allows the keepers to follow a different rule, at least once. Under this law, the keepers do not spend precious time double-checking every single droplet against the ledger. The water flows faster, the gates open wider, and the cost of keeping watch is reduced. A duplicate drop may occasionally slip through, but the journey is swifter and lighter on the valley's resources. Chapter 5: From the Mountain, Spring to the Deep Blue Lake. Let us watch the journey of a single droplet of water from start to finish. The journey begins at a bustling mountain spring called Pub Sub. Here, messages from all over the world gather like migratory birds, chirping their news. They arrive at all hours, restless and disorganized. The river of Dataflow catches these birds as they touch the water, turning their messages into a smooth, flowing stream. The river carries them down through the first transformation. Here, the keepers filter out the noise of the wind, keeping only the clear, valuable essence of the message. Further down the stream, the river groups the droplets together. It waits for a quiet window of time, perhaps 5 minutes of quiet flow, and aggregates the data, calculating the average temperature of the mountain air. Finally, the river reaches the end of its journey, The banks widen, and the water flows into a vast, deep, and perfectly still reservoir. This is the great warehouse of BigQuery. Here, the water is clear, resting undisturbed under the starlight. On the shore of this quiet lake, scholars stand with their looking glasses, using tools like Looker to peer into the depths. They do not see a chaotic rush of waves. They see clear, structured patterns, the story of the valley told in quiet, perfectly organized records. The river has done its work, the valley is quiet, the workers are resting, and the data has found its home. That's all for this journey through the cloud. Wherever your clusters reside tonight, may they remain stable, resilient, and peaceful. Until next time, sleep tight until you have to serve your next request.